The capture. The blood-curdling shrieks echoed down the sterile alien halls as the human female fought against her restraints with savage fury. Little did the aliens know, the galaxy would soon erupt in fire and fury around them. Lu, the Aryan scientist, watched the spectacle with cruel delight, already picturing the humans strapped to his dissection table, her secrets ready to be extracted. The Aryans were about to learn that capturing this human was the greatest mistake the galaxy had ever seen. There were horrors beyond imagination awaiting those who dared try to kill a human. Night stretched its fingers across the sky as the stealth shuttle slid silently toward the hulking Aryan mothership. Holt gripped his rifle, eyes fixed on the silhouette looming ahead. His team sat quietly, the weight of their mission heavy in the air. They were humanity's finest, armed and ready to rescue one of their own. The shuttle, a phantom in the dark, crept beneath the mothership's belly and opened its hatch. Holt's team moved with precision, shadows in the dim halls. They split up, sensors alert, ready to erupt. Holt's boots barely whispered as he scanned for the captive. Then alarms screamed, shattering the silence. They were discovered. Chaos erupted in flashes of energy weapons and gunfire. The strike team reacted with urgency amid the suddenly illuminated corridors. The Aryans swarmed, scales glinting, weapons sparking. Holt's pulse rifle roared defiance, answering the alien alarm. His team engaged the reptilians fiercely, evading searing blasts. Precise shots dropped hulking alien bodies to the floor with heavy thuds. Green blood sprayed as the nimble humans pushed through with skill and tenacity. Holt dove behind a bulkhead as deadly enemy fire scorched the air where he'd stood. Flank left, suppressing fire. He bellowed into the void. In sync, his team moved as one, a whirlwind unleashed inside metal walls. The tempest raged on. Holt knew their advantage faded with each passing second. The thick stench of gun smoke and charred flesh filled the air. Wounded screams testified to the brutality. Each life lost, human or Aryan, was a potential extinguished, a universe gone dark. But grief must wait. The mission drove them on. Holt and his team pressed forward, hardened and resolute, humanity's tenacity demanding no less. The clean scent of the lab reeked of fear and dread as the woman's eyes fluttered open. Harsh lights blinded her as she fought off the fog of sedation. Heart pounding, she gasped for breath. The cold gleam of steel instruments glinted with menace all around her. Lu's alien eyes shone with twisted curiosity as he readied his tools, oblivious to the impending chaos. His hulking assistant, Kid, loomed over the woman, brandishing syringes like fangs. The woman strained against her bonds, chest heaving, primal panic rising within. "No," she whispered in defiance, steeling herself. Suddenly, klaxons blared as red lights bathed the lab in alarm. Confusion crossed the aliens' reptilian faces. Providence smiled upon the captive. With an ear-splitting crash, the lab door flew off its hinges, and James Holt charged in, weapon blazing. Kid collapsed lifeless as Holt's laser fire found its mark. Seeking safety, Lu dove behind a console as Holt moved with liquid grace. With a thunderous stomp, the woman's bonds snapped open. Rising unsteadily, her will to survive conquered any lingering weakness. Holt's strong hand grasped hers, his eyes conveying his unspoken vow. "You came for me," she cried, hope kindling within. "Let's get the hell out of here," Holt replied, holding her hand tightly. Together, they turned to face the gauntlet of their escape. The corridors rang with frantic battle. Holt led the charge, energy blasts narrowly missing them as they danced their survival waltz. Desperate guards swarmed the invaders. Holt dispatched each threat with ruthless accuracy, never wavering. Though unarmed, the woman dodged and weaved persistently, fueled by ingenuity. Finally reaching the shuttle bay, Holt's wary team secured the area. Backs to the wall, faces steeled with determination, they waited as the shuttle ramp hissed open. The band of humans ready for the final push to freedom. Side by side, Holt and the woman he'd rescued took their places among their comrades. The engines roared to life, a hopeful roar amidst the symphony of war. The extraction. The shuttle lifted off with a bone-rattling roar, leaving the Aryan mothership behind in a maelstrom of chaos. Holt's team, bruised and bloodied but not broken, braced themselves for the rough ride home. The woman, still trembling from her ordeal, clung to Holt's arm, her gratitude palpable. "What's your name?" Holt asked, his voice gentle amid the thunderous engine noise. "Dr. Emily Carter," she replied, her eyes still wide with lingering terror. "I'm an astrophysicist." Holt nodded, a grim smile playing on his lips. "You're safe now, Dr. Carter. We'll get you home." The shuttle's cockpit was a hive of activity, the pilot and co-pilot wrestling with the controls as they navigated through the debris field. The Aryans, realizing their prize was slipping away, had unleashed a hail of missiles and energy blasts in a desperate bid to recapture the human scientist. "Incoming! Brace yourselves!" the pilot shouted. The shuttle bucked and weaved, a leaf in a storm, as explosions rocked the void around them. Holt and his team held on, their training and instincts kicking in. Dr. Carter squeezed her eyes shut, her knuckles white as she gripped the nearest handhold. With a final gut-wrenching lurch, the shuttle broke free of the barrage and sped into the safety of open space. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief, the tension draining from their bodies. "We did it," Holt muttered, more to himself than anyone else. But their relief was short-lived. The radio crackled to life, a distorted voice cutting through the static. "Alpha Team, this is command. Do you copy?" Holt grabbed the mic, his voice steady. "Command, this is Alpha Team. We have Dr. Carter and are en route to the rendezvous point." "Understood, Alpha Team. Be advised, you have multiple bogies on your tail. We need you to shake them before you can safely land." Holt's jaw tightened. "Roger that, Command. We'll handle it." The shuttle banked sharply, its engines straining as it pushed to maximum speed. The pursuing Aryan fighters were relentless, their sleek forms slicing through space like sharks in a feeding frenzy. "All hands, prepare for evasive maneuvers," the pilot barked. Holt turned to his team, his expression fierce. "You heard him. Man the turrets and give him hell." The gunners sprang into action, their fingers dancing over the controls as they brought the shuttle's defensive systems online. Energy beams and projectiles filled the void, a deadly ballet of light and fire. Come on," Holt muttered under his breath, willing the enemy to break off. The shuttle weaved through the onslaught, its hull rattling with the impact of near misses. Holt's heart pounded in his chest as he kept an eye on Dr. Carter, ensuring she was secure. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the pursuing fighters began to peel away, their pilots realizing the futility of the chase. The shuttle's engines roared with renewed vigor as it sped towards the safety of the human fleet. "Command, this is Alpha Team. We've shaken the bogies and are approaching the rendezvous point." "Copy that, Alpha Team. Prepare for docking procedures. Welcome home." The shuttle glided into the docking bay of the human flagship, its landing gear touching down with a gentle thud. The crew erupted in cheers, their mission a resounding success. As the ramp lowered, Holt turned to Dr. Carter, his expression softening. "You're safe now, Doctor. You're among friends." Tears welled in her eyes as she stepped onto the solid ground of the flagship. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you all." Holt nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "It's what we do. Now let's get you debriefed and settled. You've been through enough." As they walked away from the shuttle, the crew's jubilation was tempered by the knowledge that their fight was far from over. The Aryans had taken their shot, but humanity would not back down. They had rescued one of their own, and in doing so, had sent a clear message: humans were not to be underestimated. In the days to come, the human fleet would regroup, strategize, and prepare for the battles ahead. But for now, they reveled in their hard-won victory, knowing that they had made a difference. The galaxy was vast and dangerous. But with warriors like Holt and his team, humanity stood a fighting chance. The rescue of Dr. Emily Carter was only the beginning. The fires of conflict had been lit, and the galaxy would soon learn just how fiercely humans could burn. The aftermath. The human flagship hummed with activity as Holt and Dr. Carter made their way to the debriefing room. The corridors were alive with the sounds of engineers repairing battle damage, medics tending to the wounded, and officers coordinating the next steps of their campaign. Dr. Carter marveled at the organized chaos around her, grateful to be among her own kind once more. In the debriefing room, Admiral Reyes stood at the head of the table, her stern gaze softening as Holt and Dr. Carter entered. She was a formidable woman, her presence commanding respect from all who served under her. "Welcome back, Captain Holt," she said, her voice warm yet authoritative. "And Dr. Carter, it's an honor to have you safely aboard." "Thank you, Admiral," Dr. Carter replied, her voice still tinged with emotion. "I can't express how grateful I am to all of you." Admiral Reyes nodded, her expression somber. "We're just glad you're safe, Doctor. Now, we need to debrief you and understand exactly what the Aryans were after." Dr. Carter took a deep breath, steadying herself. "The Aryans wanted my research on faster-than-light travel. They believe it could give them an edge in the ongoing war." Holt's eyes widened. "FTL travel? That's a game-changer." Dr. Carter nodded. "Yes, my research is still in its early stages, but if the Aryans had succeeded in extracting the data from me, they could have accelerated their progress significantly." Admiral Reyes leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "We can't let that happen. We need to safeguard your research and ensure it doesn't fall into enemy hands." "I agree," Dr. Carter said, her resolve hardening. "I'll do whatever it takes to help." The Admiral's expression softened. "Thank you, Doctor. Your cooperation is invaluable. We'll assign a team to protect you and assist with your work." As the debriefing continued, Holt couldn't help but admire Dr. Carter's strength and determination. Despite everything she had endured, she remained focused on the task at hand, driven by a sense of duty and purpose. After the meeting, Holt escorted Dr. Carter to her quarters, ensuring she had everything she needed to rest and recuperate. As they walked, they passed a viewport, and Dr. Carter paused to gaze out at the stars. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she murmured, her eyes reflecting the distant light of 1,000 suns. Holt nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It is, and worth fighting for." Dr. Carter turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "Thank you for rescuing me, Captain. You and your team are true heroes." Holt shrugged modestly. "Just doing our job, Doctor. But I'm glad we could bring you back safely." As they reached her quarters, Dr. Carter hesitated at the door. "Captain, there's something else you should know. The Aryans mentioned a new weapon they've been developing. I don't have all the details, but from what I overheard, it could be devastating." Holt's expression grew serious. "We'll need to investigate that further." "Thank you for the information, Doctor. It could be crucial." Dr. Carter nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of determination and fear. "I just hope it's not too late." With a final nod, Holt left her to rest, his mind already racing with the implications of her warning. The Aryans were relentless, and their new weapon could tip the balance of the war if humanity wasn't prepared. As he made his way to the command center, Holt couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The rescue of Dr. Carter had been a victory, but the war was far from over. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but with heroes like Holt and his team, humanity had a fighting chance. The flagship buzzed with the energy of preparation, the crew readying themselves for whatever lay ahead. They had faced the Aryans and emerged victorious, but they knew the enemy would not rest. The fires of conflict had been lit, and the galaxy would soon learn just how fiercely humans could burn. The counterattack. In the heart of the human flagship, the command center was a hive of strategic planning and coordination. Admiral Reyes stood at the center, surrounded by holographic displays and data streams. The room buzzed with the urgency of an impending mission, the crew focused on their tasks with unwavering determination. Captain Holt report, the Admiral commanded as Holt entered the room. Admiral, Dr. Carter has provided crucial intel on a new Aryan weapon, Holt began, his tone grave. We need to act fast to neutralize its threat before they can deploy it. Admiral Reyes nodded, her expression steely. Agreed. We can't afford to let the Aryans gain the upper hand. Lieutenant Monroe, what's the status of our fleet? Lieutenant Monroe, a sharp-eyed officer with a knack for logistics, quickly pulled up the fleet's status on a holographic display. Admiral, our ships are ready for deployment. We have 3 battlecruisers and 2 frigates prepped and armed. The rest of the fleet is on standby. Good, Reyes replied. Captain Holt, I want you to lead a strike team to infiltrate the Aryan base where this weapon is being developed. Your primary objective is to gather intel and, if possible, sabotage their efforts. Holt's eyes narrowed with determination. Understood, Admiral. We'll need a skilled infiltration team and the best equipment we have. Reyes turned to Lieutenant Monroe. Make the necessary preparations, Lieutenant. I want this mission ready to go within the hour. As the crew sprang into action, Holt felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. This mission would be dangerous, but he knew they had to succeed. The fate of humanity depended on it. Within the hour, the strike team was assembled in the shuttle bay, a group of elite soldiers hand-picked for their skills and experience. Dr. Carter stood with them, a determined look on her face. Doctor, you're coming with us? Holt asked, surprised. Dr. Carter nodded. I can help. My knowledge of the Aryan technology and their base layout could be invaluable. Holt hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, stay close and follow my lead. The shuttle lifted off, its engines humming as it slipped into the void. The team was silent, each member focused on the mission ahead. As they approached the Aryan base, the tension was palpable. Approaching the drop zone, the pilot announced, "Prepare for insertion." The shuttle glided into position, and the team rappelled down, their movements swift and silent. They landed in the shadows, their black suits blending into the darkness. Holt led the way, his senses alert for any sign of the enemy. The base was a sprawling complex of metal and machinery, the air thick with the hum of alien technology. The team moved with practiced efficiency, their steps soundless on the cold, hard ground. Over here, Dr. Carter whispered, pointing to a large building in the distance. That's the main research facility. The weapon should be inside. Holt nodded and signaled for the team to move. They approached the building, slipping past patrols and security systems with ease. Dr. Carter used her knowledge of Aryan technology to disable the locks, and the team slipped inside. The facility was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, the air heavy with the scent of machinery and alien chemicals. The team moved carefully, avoiding detection as they made their way to the heart of the complex. Finally, they reached a large chamber filled with alien scientists and guards. At the center of the room was the weapon, a sleek, ominous device pulsing with energy. That's it, Dr. Carter whispered, her eyes wide with fear and determination. We need to destroy it. Holt signaled for his team to take positions. They moved swiftly, taking out the guards with silent precision. Dr. Carter and Holt approached the weapon, examining its complex controls. We don't have much time, Holt muttered. Can you sabotage it? Dr. Carter nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. I can overload the core. It'll cause a chain reaction and destroy the entire facility. Holt watched as she worked, his senses alert for any sign of danger. Suddenly, the alarm blared, and the room erupted in chaos. The remaining guards swarmed them, weapons blazing. Cover her! Holt shouted, his rifle roaring to life. The team engaged the enemy, their movements a blur of deadly precision. Dr. Carter worked frantically, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. Almost there, she muttered, sweat dripping down her face. Finally, the weapon's core began to glow, its energy levels spiking dangerously. Dr. Carter looked up, her eyes fierce. "It's done. We need to get out of here now." Holt signaled for the team to retreat, and they fought their way out of the facility, the walls shaking with the impending explosion. They sprinted towards the extraction point, the ground trembling beneath their feet. The shuttle hovered above, its ramp open and waiting. The team leaped aboard, and the pilot wasted no time lifting off. As they soared into the sky, a massive explosion ripped through the facility, sending a shockwave through the air. "Mission accomplished," Holt said, a satisfied smile on his face. Dr. Carter leaned back, her expression one of relief and exhaustion. "We did it. The weapon is destroyed." Holt nodded, his eyes reflecting the fire of determination. "But this is just the beginning. The Aryans will come back, and we need to be ready." As the shuttle sped back to the human fleet, Holt knew that the fight was far from over. The Aryans had suffered a major blow, but they would not rest until humanity was defeated. The fires of conflict burned brightly, and the galaxy would soon learn just how fiercely humans could fight. The battle for the future had only just begun. The pursuit. Back on the flagship, the crew celebrated their victory with cautious optimism. Destroying the Aryan weapon had been a significant achievement, but the threat was far from neutralized. Admiral Reyes called a council of war, summoning her top officers and strategists to the briefing room. "Congratulations on a successful mission," she began, her voice firm, but tinged with concern. "However, we must remain vigilant. The Aryans will retaliate, and we need to be prepared." Holt stood among his fellow officers, his mind already turning to the next steps. "Admiral, with Dr. Carter's knowledge, we might have an opportunity to strike deeper into Aryan territory. We could take the fight to them and disrupt their operations." Admiral Reyes considered his words, her eyes narrowing as she weighed the risks and rewards. "It's a bold plan, Captain, but boldness is what we need right now. Dr. Carter, are you confident you can provide us with actionable intelligence?" Dr. Carter stepped forward, her resolve clear. "Yes, Admiral. I studied their network extensively. I know where we can hit them to cause the most damage." Reyes nodded, her decision made. "Very well. We'll begin preparations immediately. Captain Holt, you'll lead this mission. Gather your team and be ready to move out within the next 48 hours. As the meeting adjourned, Holt and Dr. Carter headed to the mission planning room, where they pored over maps and data, formulating a strategy to penetrate the heart of Aryan territory. "There's a critical communications hub here." Dr. Carter pointed to a holographic map. "If we can disable it, it will cripple their ability to coordinate across multiple systems." Holt nodded. "We'll need to be fast and precise. Once we hit them, they'll come at us with everything they have." "That's why we need to be one step ahead," Dr. Carter replied, her eyes flashing with determination. "We can't give them any time to regroup." As the final details were hashed out, Holt's team prepared their gear and reviewed the plan. They knew the stakes were higher than ever, and failure was not an option. 2 days later, the strike team launched from the flagship, their course set for the Aryan communications hub. The journey through hyperspace was tense, the crew on edge as they anticipated the battle to come. "Approaching target," the pilot announced, breaking the silence that had settled over the team. The shuttle exited hyperspace, and the Aryan hub loomed ahead. A massive structure bristling with defenses. The team steeled themselves, knowing they were about to enter the lion's den. "All units, move out," Holt commanded as the shuttle docked with the outer perimeter of the hub. They breached the airlock and moved with deadly efficiency, taking out guards and bypassing security systems. Dr. Carter led them through the labyrinthine corridors, her knowledge of the facility guiding them past numerous traps and ambushes. "We're close," she whispered, pointing to a heavily guarded door. "The main control room is just beyond." Holt nodded and signaled for his team to take positions. They moved swiftly, neutralizing the guards with precision shots. Dr. Carter hacked the door's security panel, and it slid open with a hiss. Inside, the control room was a hive of activity, Aryan technicians scrambling to respond to the intrusion. Holt's team surged forward, engaging the enemy with fierce determination. Energy blasts and gunfire filled the air, the room a chaotic battlefield. Dr. Carter worked quickly at a terminal, her fingers flying over the controls. "I'm accessing their mainframe. Just a few more seconds." "Cover her," Holt shouted, laying down suppressing fire as the Aryans pushed back. With a triumphant cry, Dr. Carter hit the final command, and the entire hub shuddered as the system overload began. "It's done. We need to get out of here before this place blows." The team retreated, fighting their way back to the shuttle as explosions rocked the facility. They boarded just as the hub began to collapse, the shuttle racing away from the destruction. As they re-entered hyperspace, Holt let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Well done, everyone. We've dealt a serious blow to the Aryans today." Dr. Carter smiled, exhaustion evident in her eyes. "And we've shown them that humanity will not be easily defeated." Back on the flagship, Admiral Reyes received the news of their success with a mixture of relief and resolve. "This victory is significant, but the war is far from over. We must continue to press our advantage and push the Aryans back." The crew celebrated their hard-earned victory, but they knew that the path ahead would be long and arduous. The Aryans would not rest, and neither could they. The revelation. In the days following their mission, Holt's team was hailed as heroes, their actions a beacon of hope for the human fleet. But amid the celebrations, Dr. Carter continued her research, driven by a nagging sense that there was more to uncover. One evening, as she pored over the data they had retrieved from the Aryan hub, a series of encrypted files caught her attention. "Holt, you need to see this," she called, her voice urgent. Holt joined her, his brow furrowing as he studied the files. "What did you find?" "These files," Dr. Carter said, her voice trembling with excitement. "They contain information on an ancient alien artifact the Aryans discovered. According to these records, it has the power to change the course of the war." Holt's eyes widened. "An artifact? What kind of power are we talking about?" Dr. Carter shook her head, her expression a mix of awe and fear. "I don't know all the details yet, but from what I can gather, it's a weapon of immense power. If we can find it before the Aryans, it could turn the tide in our favor." Holt leaned back, processing the implications. "We need to inform Admiral Reyes. This could be the key to ending the war." They rushed to the Admiral's quarters, where they presented their findings. Reyes listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each passing moment. "This artifact," she said slowly, "if it exists, it could be the answer we've been searching for, but it also poses a great risk. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands." Dr. Carter nodded. "We need to act quickly. The Aryans are already searching for it. If we move now, we might be able to beat them to it." Admiral Reyes stood, her decision made. "Assemble a team and prepare for departure. This mission is top priority. Find that artifact and ensure it doesn't become a tool of destruction." The crew was abuzz with activity as they prepared for the new mission. The prospect of discovering an ancient weapon filled them with a sense of urgency and anticipation. The journey to the coordinates provided by the Aryan files was long and perilous, taking them to the far reaches of the galaxy. The planet they arrived at was a desolate world, its surface scarred by millennia of cosmic storms and tectonic upheaval. "Landing site ahead," the pilot announced, guiding the shuttle down to a rocky plateau. The team disembarked, their eyes scanning the barren landscape for any sign of the artifact. Dr. Carter led the way, her scanner beeping steadily as they moved closer to the source of the signal. "This way," she said, pointing to a narrow canyon. "It's just beyond here." The team navigated the treacherous terrain, their movements careful and deliberate. As they emerged from the canyon, they found themselves standing before a massive structure, half buried in the rock. "It's incredible," Dr. Carter whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "This must be the entrance." They approached the structure, its ancient doors creaking open as they neared. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of dust and age, the walls lined with intricate carvings and alien symbols. Holt's flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a vast chamber at the heart of the structure. In the center of the room, bathed in an eerie glow, stood the artifact. "It's beautiful," Dr. Carter breathed, her voice filled with reverence. "And powerful." As they moved closer, the artifact began to hum, its energy resonating through the chamber. Holt's hand hovered over his weapon, his instincts on high alert. Suddenly, the ground shook, and a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. The Aryans had arrived, and they were not alone. "We've got company," Holt shouted, drawing his weapon. "Defensive positions." The team formed a perimeter, their weapons trained on the entrance as Aryan soldiers poured into the room. The battle was fierce, the air filled with the sounds of gunfire and energy blasts. Dr. Carter worked frantically at the artifact, her fingers flying over its surface as she attempted to activate its power. "I just need a little more time," she yelled, her voice strained with effort. Holt and his team held their ground, fighting with everything they had to protect her. The Aryans were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. Finally, with a triumphant cry, Dr. Carter activated the artifact. A blinding light filled the chamber, and the Aryans were thrown back, their bodies disintegrating in the brilliant energy. As the light faded, Holt and his team stood in awe, the artifact now pulsing with a gentle glow. "It's done," Dr. Carter said, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "We have the power to end this war." Holt placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You did it, Doctor. You found the key to our survival." With the artifact in their possession, the team made their way back to the shuttle. They knew that the war was far from over, but they now had a powerful weapon in their arsenal. As they soared back to the human fleet, Holt couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. The future was uncertain, but they had taken a crucial step towards victory. The final stand. Back aboard the flagship, Admiral Reyes convened a meeting of the highest importance. The artifact, now safely secured, was the centerpiece of their strategy to finally turn the tide against the Aryans. "With this weapon, we have a chance to end this war once and for all," Reyes declared, her voice resolute. "But we must use it wisely. Dr. Carter, what can you tell us about its capabilities?" Dr. Carter stood, her eyes shining with determination. "The artifact generates a powerful energy field capable of disabling enemy ships and neutralizing their weapons. It can create a protective barrier around our fleet, making us nearly invulnerable." Reyes nodded, absorbing the information. "And the risks?" "The energy required to activate the artifact is immense," Dr. Carter explained. "It will drain our resources significantly, and the strain on our systems will be considerable. We can use it, but we must choose our moment carefully." Reyes turned to her officers. "We have one shot at this. We need to draw the Aryans into a decisive battle and use the artifact to deliver a crippling blow." The officers exchanged determined glances, their resolve clear. They knew what was at stake. Preparations began immediately. The fleet was mobilized, every ship and soldier ready for the final confrontation. The tension was palpable as they moved into position, the vastness of space a silent witness to their resolve. "All ships, report readiness," Reyes commanded, her voice echoing through the comm channels. "Ready and waiting, Admiral," came the replies, each voice steady and determined. The Aryan fleet appeared on the horizon, a dark swarm of ships bristling with weaponry. The two forces faced off, a moment of calm before the storm. "Activate the artifact," Reyes ordered, her eyes fixed on the enemy. Dr. Carter and her team worked quickly, the artifact humming to life. A brilliant light enveloped the human fleet, the energy field shimmering like a shield of hope. The Aryans opened fire, their weapons blazing, but the energy field absorbed the blasts effortlessly. The human fleet surged forward, their own weapons firing with deadly precision. The battle was fierce, the void filled with the clash of titanic forces. The artifact's power turned the tide, the Aryan ships faltering under its relentless assault. Holt's voice crackled over the comms. "Admiral, we've breached their defenses. Permission to board the flagship and take out their command center." "Permission granted," Reyes replied. "Take them down, Captain." Holt's team launched from their ship, their shuttle darting through the chaos to dock with the Aryan flagship. They stormed aboard, their movements swift and lethal. The corridors of the Aryan flagship were a maze of fire and fury. Holt led the charge, his rifle cutting down enemies as they pushed towards the command center. "Hold the line," he shouted, his team forming a defensive perimeter. Dr. Carter worked at a terminal, her skills in alien technology invaluable. "I've accessed their systems. I can disable their weapons and shields." "Do it," Holt urged, covering her as she worked. With a final command, the Aryan flagship shuddered, its systems going dark. The human fleet pressed their advantage, overwhelming the enemy with a coordinated assault. In the command center, Holt and his team confronted the Aryan leaders. "It's over," he declared, his weapon trained on them. The Aryan commander hissed in defiance. "You may have won this battle, human, but the war is far from over." Holt's eyes were steely. "We'll see about that." With a final push, the human fleet secured their victory. The Aryan ships retreated, their forces in disarray. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high. Back on the flagship, Admiral Reyes addressed the fleet. "Today, we have struck a blow for freedom and survival. We have shown the galaxy that humanity will not be defeated, but our fight is not over. We must remain vigilant and ready for whatever comes next." The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the hard-earned victory. Holt stood with Dr. Carter, their eyes meeting with a shared sense of accomplishment. "We did it," Dr. Carter said, her voice filled with relief. Holt nodded. "Yes, we did. But there's still work to be done." As the fleet regrouped and repaired, the sense of hope grew stronger. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the future remained uncertain. The final stand had been a success, but the war was far from over. The human fleet would continue to fight, their determination unbroken, their resolve unwavering. And as they looked to the stars, they knew that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. But with the power of the artifact and the unity of their people, they were ready to face whatever came next. The galaxy would remember the day humanity stood firm, and the fires of hope burned brighter than ever before.